Hey, beautiful people. Welcome to Organizing an ADHD Brain, the podcast for anyone who's ready to ditch the shame and get organized in a way that actually works with their brain. I'm Megs, a professional organizing coach, organizing an ADHD brain owner, and recovering clutter human. While I work primarily with women, this space is for anyone who wants practical tools, mindset shifts, and a new way to look at time, stuff, and self-worth. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, scattered, or stuck in a cycle of starting and stopping, you're not alone. And you're in the right place. Let's build a life that feels calm, doable, and aligned, one mindful move at a time. Hey, beautiful people, it's Megs, and welcome back to Organizing an ADHD Brain. As I get ready to launch season 3 this September, I wanted to revisit a few episodes that still hold so much truth. Whether it's your first time hearing them or they're coming back to meet you in a new way, they're worth another listen. This next season is all about the messy middle, where your brain still wants to do it all or nothing at all, and you're learning how to take one small step anyway. I've been in it too, letting go, rebuilding, figuring out exactly what works for my brain. And you don't have to do it like I did, but you can do it with awkward steps, with emotion, and with way more grace than you're probably giving yourself. So let this episode be a reminder. You don't have to be fully unburied to move forward. You're allowed to want more joy, and you're absolutely capable of creating change right where you are. Let's jump in. I'm so excited to be talking to you more about letting go. This seems to be a common theme in our life, right? This week, we're going to talk about letting go of some of the common household items that we know we need to let go of, but there's that barrier there of not knowing how to get it out of our house in a way that makes sense, in a way that we know that there's more information that we need to gather in order for us to be able to let go. And I want to talk to you about it today. Before we dive in, I want to highlight that the way I perceive the world right now feels really heavy. There are so many changes going on. In fact, the only constant in life is change. That phrase on a regular basis actually makes me feel a little bit better that the only thing we can expect is change. So while we have a bad day, the next day gives us a new opportunity. And when we have an incredible day, that high is certainly not going to last. However, when things feel out of our control and everything feels a little uncertain, taking small, tangible actions in your own space can bring a sense of stability. I've noticed it with myself when I feel a little overwhelmed and I'm sitting at my computer consuming. I get up and I do something and it brings a lot more clarity to my life. It helps. Just one thing. That's something that I talk about all the time, right? Just one thing, not 30 things. We can't do 30 things all at once, even though our brain is trying to tell us we need to. But what is one thing you can do? Letting go of the things we know we don't need is a small but powerful step. On this show, I talk about a lot. I give you a lot of tips. I talk about a lot of the things that have made sense in my own life. But the way that I've gotten to where I am is by not allowing the many things that are controlling my hyperactivity in my brain to take control. Okay, I take that back. Sometimes my brain takes control, but what brings me back to earth is allowing myself to focus on one thing. So when you leave this episode today, what is one thing that resonated with you and one thing that you can take with you into the future? It's okay if you don't save this episode and come back to it later. One thing is so much better than 30 things because 30 things is going to set you up for failure. We need to be setting ourselves up for success. One thing, that'll set you up for success. Decluttering is a form of active medicine. So choose one thing. As far as all of our stuff in our household, we can accumulate so darn much so easily. We don't even realize it's happening. It's almost like we wake up one day and we're like, how the heck did I get so much stuff in my house? How the heck did this happen? How did I not even notice it happening? Wouldn't I have stopped this from happening years ago? But no, we're here in this moment. And so now we have to ask ourselves, instead of what if, we have to consider what now. And a lot of the times what prevents us from letting things go in our house is this unforeseen barrier, this barrier that we don't even realize is there. When it comes to things in your household, like old paint that you're not going to use anymore, or because it is old and you can't use it anymore, things like old pesticides or bug spray or sunglasses or you name it, all of these little things, what is the appropriate way to dispose of them? Even batteries. What the heck do I do with old batteries or electronics? There's so many things that come up on a regular basis. And knowing what to do with it is just another thing to do on our to-do list. And what do? We say, I'll deal with that later. And then we come across it again and we say, I'll deal with that later, because we know in general, it's going to be a pretty quick task. However, because it's a task, it gets added to our to-do lists that are already too long and does not get prioritized to the top of the list. But you're listening to this podcast because decluttering and organizing has become a high priority for you, because you realize that it's creating a lot of congestion in your life and you want to eliminate that congestion. You're looking for a way to breathe on the other side. And this episode today is going to be a little bit more breathing room for you, because I did all the research and I got so excited about this episode and figuring out how do we remove the barrier to getting out the stuff that we don't know what the heck to do with. And I discovered so many incredible, cool tidbit things that I cannot wait to share with you. I also created a download with AI prompts on how to figure out where to donate in your specific location. That's going to be available on my website, and you can go to that in the show notes below, or just go to organizinganadhdbrain.com, click on shop, and you'll see all of my downloads available there. Some of you have also been asking for my to-do list daily planner that I had recorded an episode on way back when. I think it was last summer or so. This is the daily planner that I use to organize my schedule on a regular basis. That's available for you to download as well. I send you the podcast episodes to support your use in this, and I'll record some additional episodes moving forward so you can understand how you might be able to use it too. Coming back to letting go of the household items. These are the things that we know we don't want anymore, that we know need to leave our house. It's not, what if I could use this anymore? Because most of the time it's too old, or this is something that I know is going to cause contamination in my house, and I've made different decisions on the things that I want to buy now. But I also want to dispose of it in a way that makes sense for not only me, but feels like I'm doing my part for the environment. My husband and I are getting ready to move, and we have been going through our garage and trying to figure out what we're going to keep, what we're going to let go. And I came across some bug spray that I didn't know what to do with. Now, my husband was like, maybe I'd just throw that in the garbage. Okay, possibly, right? I think we've all made a decision that we knew maybe was not the best decision for us. However, we're also trying to make decisions and getting stuff out of our life, and we want to make a full decision. So we're not putting off or delaying or procrastinating, trying to make this decision in the future. Regardless, I decided to take a little container that I had emptied it out, and I didn't know if I wanted to keep it or not, just this crate in my garage. And I was like, oh, this is where I'll put all of the stuff that I want to leave the garage. So while I didn't know what to do with the bug spray in that moment, I knew I was going to be doing this episode, which is awesome. And I figured this is a great space for me to collect these items that I don't want to throw in the garbage right away so that I can dispose of them properly. Before we jump into some of the specifics, let's talk about, why do we keep things? Sometimes it's the uncertainty, as I've been talking about. We don't know how to remove them from our homes. Sometimes it's guilt. We don't want it to go to waste. We spent money on it. Maybe we didn't even use it. Maybe we just had this really great intention of a project that we thought we'd do one day, but now it's been so long that the item doesn't even do what it was supposed to do in the first place. We have the decision paralysis. As I had mentioned, we procrastinate these decisions because it's so much easier to put it off. And I read somewhere recently that procrastination, when we're procrastinating, we're deciding to not do this right now. And so in that regards, it's almost like we're checking this off on our to-do list. Like, I've seen it. I've decided that I'm not going to deal with this right now. Check, donezo, and we move on. And I was like, wow, I don't know if I feel personally victimized by that sentiment, or if it just helps me understand how to attack certain situations in a different way. And then, of course, the accessibility. Doing the research feels like it's too much, and it's so annoying. And we also know how easy it is. We know that it would be easy to just Google something and figure out where to drop it off. But because of our executive function difficulties, there's a lot of steps that go into that. There's a lot that goes into figuring out where I'm going to dispose of this. In fact, last week, I was just telling you about how I was trying to dispose of paint and I had to set myself up for this specific event to go to, but then I had scheduled it for the wrong day and time. And there I was sitting there with all this paint that I was ready to let go. But the only reason why I was actually able to find a space to let it go in that moment, because the other one didn't work out, was because I was forced to. I had no other choice and I wasn't going to go home with that paint. I was already in the car and I was actively doing this. This is when I was making that decision. Coming back to the accessibility, we want it to be easy. And so I want to make it easy because these things shouldn't be cluttering up our life anymore. I just want to support you in finding some room to breathe. I was working with one of my clients the other day and we were talking about, what's something that she's responsible for, but what could her spouse support her with that she could delegate? That's not necessarily something that's on her list. And she was like, oh, we have so much paint. We have so many cans of paint in the corner of our garage. We don't know what to do with it. And I'm like, I know what to do with it. I was so excited because I'm removing those barriers to help you make the decisions for you to get these things out of your house. In our community the other day, one of our community members was talking about sunglasses and how to dispose of sunglasses. And guess what? There is a way to dispose of sunglasses where you're not necessarily just donating it to Goodwill or just the next donation center. You can actually recycle them if that is what you want to do with those items. So I'm really excited to share this with you today. So the way we attack this is by gaining the knowledge. I'm going to drop one of the examples of a ChatGPT prompt that I would encourage you to use in the show notes below. And like I said, if you want something easier, go to organizinganadhdbrain.com, go to shop, and there will be a template on the specifics for each and every item. There's also a website called Earth 911. I'm actually going to go to it while I'm recording this right now because I want to tell you my initial reactions of it because it's super cool, but it was a little overwhelming to me. So it's Earth 911, more ideas, less waste. And for those of you who are listening and aren't located in the States, I don't know if this is just state-based or if it is truly for our entire Earth. It does say recycling centers by zip codes, drop-off recycling centers, super cool. There's even podcasts, there's business, ecotech, home and garden. So it says how to recycle. I clicked on that. When you click on how to recycle, it goes over everything, even oyster shells and large appliances, computer monitors, kerosene, coffee pods, carpets, car batteries. Really cool. So that's a good place to start if you want to tackle this on your own, because ultimately I'm just giving you some of the information to inspire you. Another way to attack this is make it easy. Like I shared before, have an outbox. Have some sort of recycling box or donation box that is just for hazardous chemicals or whatever you have the most of in your garage. But sometimes we have this cyclical thinking. Like in order to do this, we have to do this. But in order to do this, we have to do this, right? So like in order for me to have an outbox, then I have to go over and I have to organize all of my paints. But in order for me to organize my paints, I probably need an hour or two, and I'm going to put that off because I'm going to wait until I get the dopamine boost that I really need to start a project that I don't actually want to do. So what if we started by just having an outbox and just putting that there so that you know the things that need to leave? And then when you're ready again, you can come back to that outbox and be like, okay, let me look up just this bug spray and see what I need to do with that. And I'm just going to figure it out. I'm going to make a note of it and then I'll come back to it again. It's okay if you do this little by little, but our executive function in breaking these steps down into minimal tasks is difficult. We're not good at it.
Let's take a quick break.
If you're enjoying this episode, I have a quick favor to ask. Could you take just a minute to leave a review? I know. Every podcast asks, but here's the deal. Your review helps other ADHD brains like ours find this show. Plus, reading them seriously makes my day. So if something in this episode has helped you, made you laugh, or even made you feel seen, let me know by leaving a quick review. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you more than you know. Now, back to the episode. Research shows that people with ADHD have executive function difficulties. And so that's why it's so important to challenge yourself to just do one thing instead of trying to tackle all the things all at once. Another thing that has helped me and my clients is using a trigger to remind you of some of the things that you want to do in the house. A trigger is not like a reminder on your phone, which could work depending on who you are. I know sometimes when I create reminders, they're good for a moment, maybe a week or so, and then I'll ignore them. And so when it comes to triggers, you use something like an event in your house, or maybe it's seeing something that'll trigger you to remember a specific thing. For example, when I brush my teeth at night, I'm triggered to clean up around my sink so that I put away all the stuff that I've made a mess of. Just because I'm organized does not mean I'm not messy. I am still me. I just have a place for everything now, and that is my life. But I'm triggered by the action of brushing my teeth. It gives me something to do as I'm brushing my teeth. I'm using one hand to brush my teeth and one to put things away. It just works for me. So use a trigger. Maybe you walk out the garage door, you're triggered to look at the outbox and see if there's something that can go. And if you've looked up a place that you can drop this off at, maybe that's something you could do along the way. I don't know if that's the greatest system you could use, but that's something that could start. When it comes to this stuff too, we've got to be able to reframe the guilt. Sometimes we feel a lot of guilt and shame because we have so much stuff. But as I was saying earlier, it's okay to not focus on what if. We can ruminate on that. And sometimes because we're ruminating on what if or why didn't I, then we don't actually do the thing. So instead of saying what if you say what if, why didn't I do this sooner? Use that as a trigger to say, what now? What do I do now? And what is one thing I could do to start to make progress in this garage or with the household items that I keep holding on to because I want to dispose of them in the proper way? Letting go really allows you to see what you have and reevaluate the needs in your life. It's such a positive experience when you get used to it. Having a system is going to be key here, and a system is just a series of triggers that helps you get these things out of your house. For example, a lot of people tell me they have a one in, one out rule. So if I buy a shirt, I'm going to let go of a shirt. If I buy some bug spray, I'm going to let go of some bug spray. If I buy a can of paint, I'm going to see what can of paint needs to leave, and that's the way I'm going to do it. Some people also say, well, I tried that, it didn't work. And what I would say to that is, how long did you try it for? And when you forgot that rule existed, did you ever come back to it? Because we're not great with consistency, we're good with continuity. So when we're not good at something right away, we expect that we're just failures, right? But it's really just that it's new. And we're not good with habits if we don't do them for a long time. In fact, we need those triggers to support us in making more long-term decisions. It's not about not doing it every day or every single time it happens. It's about noticing that you didn't do it last time, but then saying, okay, what if I tried that again? What if that worked? I hate not being good at something right away. I hate it. Like even with this podcast, I didn't want to do a podcast because I just wanted to be so good at it right away. But can you imagine if I had never started this? I've been doing this for over a year now, and I'm so much better than when I initially started. And guess what? I still have so much to learn, but I keep coming back to it time and time again. And that's the key when you're trying something new, trying to incorporate a new system in your life, is to continue to come back to it time and time again. All right, I want to go through some of the common household items so that you get an idea of how to let go, but I can't go through all of them. I also think that we get bored of them, if I'm being honest. I might get bored of telling you about them, but I am going to go through some of the things I thought were so super interesting. We're going to start with paint because I talked about it last week, but I really wanted to know, why is it important that we don't put paint in the trash? Because let's be honest, that's the easy way to do it. But when you put paint in the trash, it can seep into the groundwater, and the breakdown leads to toxins in the environment. And some of the paint can actually be remixed or resold if we were to recycle it in a way that makes sense. So it creates a lower carbon footprint when we put a little bit more effort into it. One way I would approach the paint is if you have a lot of it, just make sure it's all in one area. Start there, right? That's a good place to just get everything in one space and say, okay, I'm just going to move one can a day. I walk into my garage, I'm moving one can of paint, right? There's your trigger right there. And then an action. Aside from donating paint to Sherwin-Williams or even Home Depot, there's some paint recycling opportunities there. Some of the usable paint you could donate to Habitat Humanity Restore. I know we have one in downtown Colorado Springs, but you can look up different locations for the Habitat Humanity Restore. You could donate to a local school or community center. They might need it for props for a theater production, or the community center might just need some touch-up paint for a room or an area. You could also list it on Buy Nothing or neighborhood groups to feel more comfortable about letting it go. I did not know this, but I thought this was so cool. For latex paint only, if it's less than a quarter full, you can remove the lid and you can let it dry out before you put it in the trash. And to let it dry out faster or to speed it up, you can put some kitty litter in it or sawdust, and then you just put it in the regular trash. So if it's oil-based, that's a no-go. I also learned that some of this old paint is used to cover up graffiti or construction projects instead of new materials. So it's saving money in other places. And then, as I had mentioned last week, some of the paints can be used to produce alternative products, and oil-based paints can actually be used as fuel in industrial settings. So super fascinating stuff. And again, it just comes back to, instead of throwing all of this stuff away or putting it in the trash where it's certainly not going to get reused, if we take that little time to make that additional effort, we can make it easy. One of the reasons why I did this episode is because I really wanted to talk about batteries, because I did not know how to dispose of batteries, and I have been throwing away AA batteries in the trash for a good amount of time and feeling really guilty about it, but also knowing that I did not want to take the extra steps to go and do something about it. And what I found out is that AA, AAA, LD, and 9-volt batteries can be thrown in the trash. They no longer have mercury in them, which was why they originally were not supposed to be thrown in the trash. So that's awesome. That makes our life easier. You don't have to find an extra way to dispose of those regular batteries. For the batteries that contain lead, mercury, cadmium, lithium, those all can leak into soil and water if you throw them in the trash. So it's super important that you dispose of them in the correct way. They can also harm wildlife, plants, and water over time. You'll notice that's a pretty common theme as I go through a lot of this stuff. For rechargeable batteries, those must be recycled. Car batteries, it's actually illegal in most states, I think in all states, because there's toxic lead and acid. And then the lithium batteries, they could cause fires if they're crushed. So if they go into a trash compactor and they're crushed, they could cause a fire, which could cause an explosion. So I would say that's a pretty good reason to not throw it in the trash. I could imagine that you agree. And then button batteries, they contain silver, mercury, or lithium as well. And so we want to make sure that we're also recycling. Those are the common batteries that you see. Sometimes they're in little toys or used for hearing aids. What's interesting is when you recycle it properly, some of the lithium, nickel, and cobalt can be reused to make new batteries. Super cool. And then batteries in landfills release toxic chemicals that cause health problems. So just a lot of reasons why you should recycle it in the right way. And of course, the reasons why we don't want to put it simply in the trash. Bug and weed spray. Okay, so bug and weed spray, why is it important that we don't just throw it in the trash? It can harm the soil and groundwater. It could disrupt water treatment facilities. So if you don't know, of course, when water goes into the sewer system, if you're in a larger city area, oh my gosh, I'm not an expert on this, so I'm going to explain it in the best way I know how. But whenever we recycle water in any way, shape, or form, it goes into a treatment facility. And if you're putting additional chemicals in there that I would assume there's a lot of other chemicals that they're mixing with, it could be really harmful to those facilities where they're having to spend a lot more money to have to clean out in order to get them back to a working and functional way of being. Bug and weed spray could also be harmful to bees, butterflies, birds, insects. It could poison animals, kids, humans. You could have a harmful reaction on your skin. So it's just good to take caution when it comes to recycling those items. And honestly, if you have unopened or still usable items, you might be able to donate to a local farm, maybe a community garden, maybe neighbors if they like the brand that you're using. But a lot of those home improvement stores out there have take back programs that they'll recycle it for you, which is so cool. So let me give you an example of what I put together. What it does is it just goes through and breaks down the different steps as far as what to expect from this guide, executive functioning tips. So skim the guide, pick the easiest one to do, open ChatGPT or Perplexity. Perplexity AI is the one that I would recommend, although ChatGPT and I are BFFs at this point. But when it comes to using AI, just choose your preferred method, put in the prompt, and adjust some of the guidelines to your area so that you can find what makes sense for you the most. I tried to make it as easy as possible, as simple as possible. So why this matters, how to recycle, even the time it may take to actually do it. So that way you have this guide for yourself in the future. You can keep it saved on your computer. I did put links in here to both ChatGPT and Perplexity. As I'm editing this episode, I realized that not everyone understands how to use AI, nor have they ever used it before. I just wanted to remind you that that's okay. Sometimes we're afraid to use something that's new or different because we don't know how to treat it or what it's going to be like. And some of us are afraid that AI is going to take over one day. The way that I see it is whether we like it or not, AI is around and likely going to be around for good. And if they do end up taking over one day, we should probably learn about it now and grow with it instead of trying to learn about it when it does eventually take over the world. Anyway, that's my perspective on it. Perplexity is more like Google. And I love it because you can ask more specific questions. And there, as far as I understand, there's no ads yet. Like Google, people pay for ads so that they get put at the top of the queue. I also really like ChatGPT. I put both of those links in the PDF download on my website so that you can simply just click on the link and see which one works out better for you. Regardless, just know that you might not be good at it right away, and that's normal. I'm here to support you. There's a ton of YouTube videos. That's another rabbit hole you can go down. Let's go back to the show. So what I also included on here is electronics. Now, electronics is going to be a future episode. One of my coaching clients and one of my favorite people put together a guide on how to let go of our electronics, like old computers and old cell phones, things like that, in a way that makes sure that not only we're protecting our personal data, but also making sure that we're recycling in a way that makes sense for the environment. Other things I put on here are like eyeglasses and sunglasses, car fluids, miscellaneous chemicals, bicycles, tires, ink and toner cartridges, Christmas lights, satellite dishes. I worked hard to make sure that you had a good idea of where to go. There's an AI prompt specific to each and every item that's on this list. And then if you find something that's not on this list, you can easily modify the AI prompt to just put in the thing that you're looking for to make it easy. What's super cool about ink and toner cartridges, first, I had no idea that you could recycle ink and toner cartridges. But as I was looking into this, one of the places you can recycle cartridges is at Staples. So I figured I'd just give my local Staples a call. And I talked to this adorable kid on the phone, so cute. And he was giving me all this information, so proud of the things that he knew. It was really cool. But he told me that you can bring in all of your old cartridges and they will even give you a discount for what you're recycling. So that's something that you can include in your search is after you're done finding the place you want to go to, when you give them a call, just to make sure that, everything is correct as far as AI has given you, ask them if they have any like coupons or discounts they give you based on you recycling. What a cool dopamine hit to have something else saving money as an opportunity. So for the cartridges, you can save an additional $2 per cartridge. After talking to him, he said that they also take all of your old electronics. So does Best Buy, so does Apple, but they'll take some of your old charger batteries for your electronics. They'll also take school supplies. So for some of you that I've told you, how many pens do you really need in your life, right? Like how many pens would you be comfortable having in your home? If that's the case, where could you bring your extra pens? You could just donate them in your donation box, wherever you bring your donations. But this is another really cool place. And I asked, he didn't know a ton about the writing utensils, but he did say for the electronics, they're able to do something where they can get the parts and use them for either new electronics or maybe refurbished electronics, things like that. So super interesting. The more I dive into this, the more I'm learning about how there's so many companies out there doing incredible things to repurpose so many of the items that we have sitting in our homes. And honestly, I had no idea that you should recycle Christmas lights because they contain valuable copper that can actually be reused. So a lot of the home improvement stores will offer seasonal recycling programs for your Christmas lights. It's just insane. There's so many cool things out there. I'm sure this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as recycling goes, but I'm really excited about this recycling and disposal guide. These are the easy decisions. We just have to overcome the barrier of knowing where to bring it, of knowing where it goes next, because this is not something that we could just bring to Goodwill or someplace that's easy, because there are specifics for each and every one of these items. And as a reminder, I mentioned at the beginning of the call, what's one thing you took away from everything I had mentioned today? Whether you go download the recycling and disposal guide or you're just listening to this podcast, what's one thing that you could do that'll get you to the next step? Because taking control of your home feels so good, but it doesn't happen all at once. It happens by doing one thing, and then another thing, and then another thing, and then another thing. On that note, I hope you have an incredible week this week. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I love being a part of your journey, and I hope you found something helpful to take with you. If you're ready to get support in organizing your ADHD life, I'd love to invite you to join my community. It's a space built just for you. And if you're curious about coaching, let's chat. I encourage you to book a free call just to see if it's the right fit. You can get on my calendar directly from the show notes below, and we can have a chat. A quick reminder, I am not a doctor or a medical professional. Everything I share is based on my own experience as well as my coaching expertise. So please consult your doctor for any medical or ADHD related concerns. Until next time, keep going. Right where you are is a great place to start.